The 76ers not in the playoffs for the first time in a long time. It was a really rough season, but still weird they're not here in the postseason. Let's break it down right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats, the 76ers NBA G League affiliate. And we know our team is not in the playoffs right now, but you can still check us out at the free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com to check out all the off-season info if there's any breaking news, and we will stay up to date on all things 76ers. In addition, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, Keith, the playoffs are in action. The 76ers aren't in it. I didn't think it was going to be weird because the season was a catastrophe, but it is really weird not watching this team in the postseason.
Well, the thing is, it's not about watching it for me. It's about, it's the first time in 8 years that I don't really have anything to do. Because think about it. The last couple, it's funny. Yesterday, last night, I watched the game. The other days I watched games, and it's weird because I'm sitting back and I'm watching games that I really didn't have time to. My focus was on, going to the Sixers shoot around, going to their practices, going to the other teams. And now it's just like, okay, what do I do? It's just bizarre. And I think it's a sign of just how whack this season was. I mean, we took it for granted to whereas you knew that the 76ers were going to be in the playoff. You were going to have something to write about. And now it's like, oh, I'm staying up late watching the West Coast games. Oh, another game comes on at 1:00. So to me, it's different. It's weird. It seems like something's missing. I mean, it just really does. It just seems like something is missing.
It really does. And Keith, for you too, when you get to cover the team as in depth as you do for as many years as you have, is there always just kind of a different buzz, a different feeling going into even just round one of the playoffs? Even if the 76ers, maybe don't have the edge there, there's still a different feeling going into that, being able to be there in that moment with the team that's trying to achieve a goal to go to an NBA championship.
Yeah, it's a different feel because it's funny. I remember playoff basketball is real basketball, and it's nothing against the regular season. It's kind of like playoff basketball is when you get your money's worth. The crowd is into it. The players go 100%. The rotation is a little bit shorter, especially the further along you go. There's kind of like there's like gamesmanship, coaching, and all that. The thing is, like, if you look at the NBA regular season, right? And it's funny. I remember my first year, I covered the preseason, and I'm like, okay, this is NBA ball. And I remember a veteran told me, no, this is an NBA ball. And it was weird because my first preseason, the 76ers went to London. Actually, they didn't go to London. They went to Manchester, England, and they went to Bilbao, Spain. But while they were in Manchester, they played the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Kevin Durant was running point guard.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, Kevin Durant's playing point guard. And it was like, then I realized that OKC was just throwing lineups out there. So then they go and they play the regular season, and then you're like, okay, well, this is a different level. And I remember the first time they made the playoffs, they had Amir Johnson on the team. And I was like, dang, Amir, this is real. And he was like, yeah. And it was funny. I remember talking to another guy, and he was telling me, he said, Keith, the regular season is you just want to go out there, you want to get a lead, and then all of a sudden you're playing pickup. And then he says what happens is in the third quarter, you want to come out and you want to attack it, and then you're playing pickup until the last 5 minutes, and that's when the coaching comes into play. Well, the playoffs every possession matters. Guys are going hard. They do whatever. So, it's a different brand of basketball. And you really appreciate it when you're in the arena. You appreciate it when you're covering it. You see the gamesmanship. So, in a way, not saying I feel cheated, but I feel like the fans are being cheated because what they watched was a month of tanking basketball. And now you're sitting here and you're watching teams play, and they're like putting on a show. They're going at it. The coaches are coaching. And just like next time we see the Lakers play, you're going to see how good of a coach JJ Redick is. You're going to say, hey,
exactly.
Can he make these adjustments? So, but to me, it's just weird because it's also a sign of the times of the 76ers. Is how far they have fallen, because you would not have imagined that the 76ers wouldn't be playing in the playoffs. Like, anything that you would have said, leading into the season up until January, even like when they started off 2-12 in early November, you knew that they were going to turn things around and make the playoffs. And now they're not. And it's just tells you what a bad season it was.
And it's weird, too, because year after year, when you get to cover these teams, it's saying, okay, well, there's so many crazy, different series. You look back when it was the Raptors and Sixers and just how close that they were to going to an Eastern Conference Finals. You get all the stories in there. You get everything in between. And for the 76ers, you could look at disappointing losses, too, in the sense of, okay, maybe they could have pushed the extra mark to go to the Eastern Conference Final. That was disappointing. This year was a whole different level of disappointment because, they had expectations coming into this year, right? You bring in Paul George, you have this big three, you say, okay, well, this team should go to the Eastern Conference Final. And, 76ers, they're used to going out of the second round. And that was kind of an expectation to go for them that you keep harping on year after year. And then you get to a point where not only you're not even making the play-in tournament, but you are tanking to be as bad as you can be so that you can get a top draft pick. It's definitely tough for the fans out there when you look at it from an organization standpoint too. It's just, this is not what I would have thought when you look at the Joel Embiid era, bringing in another player, even if the big three, Keith, didn't work out, right? Even if the chemistry wasn't there all season long, they still would have at least maybe made the play-in if guys were healthy. And I understand stuff happened and I understand guys got hurt, but this is completely out of thought of what I would have looked into going into the 2024-25 season. I would have not written it up this way or thought that this would be the outcome for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, but it's even bigger than that. Like, think about it. Like, it's bigger than that to me. We're bigger than that. And what I mean by that is, like, think about it. Think of how you got to a point where it became an expectation. Mm-hmm. It got to a point where you saying, okay, right now the 76ers should be playing. The 76ers should be playing the New York Knicks, right? Not the Detroit Pistons, right? They should be in the Garden and getting hyped up. It's like something that you just look forward to, right? You know what I mean? The content we should be talking about. Can Paul George stop Jalen Brunson? You know what I mean? Is Joel Embiid, Joel Embiid and Cat. So to me, it was one of those things where, you look at it and you say to yourself, like, this is bad. Like, this is a step back, a step forward. And it's just to a point where it's just something just missing. It is. It's just something missing. Like, for a lot of reporters, you got to a point, like, I'm telling you, there's nothing like playoff basketball. It's nothing like when you go into the arena and you see the crowds home and away, and you just see how loud it gets. And don't get me wrong, like, you might see the 76ers play the Knicks in the regular season, and you're saying to yourself, wow, this is a crazy atmosphere. There's nothing like the playoffs. Nothing. There's nothing like it. And then each round that you go, it gets higher and higher. Talking about the volume, everything, the stakes get higher. You start seeing like national media members show up, right? All the games are on national TV. The tickets get more expensive. It's just something that it's hard to describe until you're like and you're in there and you compare it to like a regular season game, but it's just completely different. And I just have to say that there's a void missing in Philadelphia right now. You know what I mean? It just is. It's just a void missing in Philly.
And it's interesting you bring that up, too, because it's not even just the Sixers. Every Philadelphia team as of late has been pretty good in terms of getting to the postseason, almost seeming like it's the norm to get to the postseason to try to go after a championship. And the 76ers were a part of that norm. The city was a part of that norm. And now you're looking at it and you're saying there really is a big hole here. What are you watching? You're putting on games if you're a fan that maybe you're like, okay, well, this is cool. But the 76ers, from a coverage standpoint, we're talking about what's next. The 76ers not in the playoffs when this hasn't really been the norm for us in the past few years. So it's definitely strange. I will agree with you from that standpoint, just all around from every point of view with the 76ers being out of the playoffs. But it's been since 2017. So maybe when we come back here, we can kind of take a look back on some of those playoff runs. And then some players right now that a lot of fans had saying, get off of my team last year, are now performing pretty well in the postseason for other teams. So we'll touch on that and more right here on Locked On 76ers. And NBA fans, you know what time it is. It is playoff season for other teams. That means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing you the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 30-piece crispy timber condo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order $20 or more. Use the code Wingstop50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. The offer is valid noon to midnight the day after the game. The terms do apply. So what's your go-to move, your go-to meal after an epic game? Do you like wings? Do you like a little bit of snack? Everything in between. Imagine being rewarded with free food just because somebody went off for 50 points in a game. Ever looked at your delivery fees and thought there's got to be a better way? With DashPass, you get $0 delivery fees and exclusive perks like this one. How much would you save in over a season? It would be a lot. So here's the play. Sign up for DashPass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, DashPass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 order and code Wingstop50. That's DashPass. Your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms do apply, but make sure you go check it out today. All right. So, Keith, let me ask you this from your standpoint. In terms of the Joel Embiid era, has there been a season where it was unreal for you personally to be able to cover? Because, everybody sees the work you do and the great stories you put out. But from a behind-the-scenes standpoint, was there ever a surreal moment for you during the Joel Embiid era that you got to cover? Anything specific that maybe people don't know that you got to cover when the Sixers were actually in the playoffs?
I mean, you know what? I mean, I think as great as the playoffs were, and again, I'm telling you, it's a different type of level that it goes up. But they all ended with disappointment too, because the team never was able to, disappointment for the team because they were never able to go through get out of the second round. So to me, I want to say like the best. I'm not going to say the best part, but I remember at first when they beat Miami in that first playoff series that they played. I think that was like huge expectations, even though Joel was injured in that one too. But there was huge expectations because it was like, okay, they did something and they're going to the second round. They lose to Boston. I want to say the most memorable thing is two of them. And they're both heartbreaking for 76ers fans. The one was the Kawhi shot. Yeah. That's always going to be a game where you remember where you were and this and that. And also, like I talk about the crowd being electric, the crowd being this and that. And you could have heard like a pin drop as the ball was bouncing, right? And then all of a sudden it was just like, and then, you see Joel getting emotional, crying. You see like other people looking shocked. You see like, it was just crazy. But then the bad part about it was you look at it and you say, when it's all said and done, you say, the Sixers could have won a championship that year. Like they had everything that they could do. They could have won a championship. I want to say the other one was losing to the Atlanta Hawks 2 years later. That was one of those things where, they were the best team in the Eastern Conference. They had everything put together. And then we look at it, and then all of a sudden, a lot of people blame Ben Simmons for passing up the shot. But there was a lot of other things that happened. Like Matisse fouled a 3-point shooter. Joel had 8 turnovers as good as he played. It was just one of those things where a lot of things fell apart. So, unfortunately for the Sixers, it was like one of those things where the moments that you remember are, unfortunately for them, are like losses. You know what I mean? Because they could never get over the hump. But I'll be honest, that Kawhi thing, and the crazy thing about whenever you go to Toronto, and whenever you whenever you go through customs, and you come around and you walk like towards your gates, there's a big mural of that shot, and you see it, and it's like it's crazy, right? So they want everybody they want all the Americans, all the people going to the States to be reminded of that shot. And then it's crazy when you go to Atlanta, you always think about it like, dang, man, I can't believe how the Sixers had a chance. And the crazy part is when you look at it, like, especially that Toronto series, you remember it was one of those things where everybody thought the Sixers had an opportunity, like to win that series early on. Like they were up and they came back for, I believe it might have been game 4 or 5, and everybody was expecting like, okay, they're going to go up and they're going to do it. And they didn't. And that's even when they lost to Boston, when Doc Rivers got fired afterwards, they had an opportunity to clinch it in game 6. But to me, that Toronto game and losing to Atlanta, those were two of the biggest, unfortunately, negative moments in 76ers playoff history.
And the Toronto game, too, the thing about that series is that team was so talented when you look at it. You see Jimmy Butler, JJ Redick's out there, in addition to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, before, everything happened between those two guys. And then in addition to that, you alluded to it earlier a little bit, but they would have matched up really, really well against the Bucks in that Eastern Conference Finals game. And then you go to play the finals if they win that series against a really beat-up Golden State team where Kevin Durant was hurt and then Klay Thompson gets hurt at the end of that series. So in recent history in the Joel Embiid era, that was really, to me, their best chance. And then they try to build team after team after team to make it work, and it doesn't. I'm going to go back even further, and this one is not necessarily in terms of on the top talked about ones. Like clearly Kawhi Leonard is the number one. That shot, the quadruple bounce was crazy. But do you remember when Marco Bellinelli hit the 3, they thought confetti goes off and then they roll it back and it was actually a 2. That's when I felt like it was like, okay, the 76ers lose that series. But in the end, now fans are starting to really look forward to next year. Now you're talking about and doing different episodes about now the hypes around the 76ers and things like that from that standpoint. So that's another one that a lot of people forget about because they were super, super close to winning that game as well.
Yeah, but the only difference between that one, they lost that series in 5 games.
Right.
Remember?
Right.
And they lost that one in 5. But as you said, the roster, the reason why but see, that was the one where we say the first playoff series, like when everything got started.
Yeah.
But the reason is, remember, after that, they were saying, we're going to go star hunting. We're going to go star hunting. Like they were saying, we're going to go after LeBron. We're going to go after Paul George. We're going to go after Kawhi. They couldn't. And the thing is, it was really, a lot of people forget. They put in a bid for Kawhi.
Yep.
And they kept they wanted them to offer more. The Sixers were like, we're not going to bid against ourselves. So they didn't do it. Next thing you know, the Toronto gives up DeMar DeRozan, and that was it. But when you look at it, think about it. That year, when they were on the cover of Sports Illustrated, right? The starting lineup, they kept saying that they were going to bring this whole team back. That's what they kept saying. Because after they traded for Tobias, they were saying they're going to bring this team back. And
run it back, yep.
They were going to run it back, and they didn't. So, the Marco one, that was cool. But then you knew, they didn't have toughness. They didn't have balance. This one, we think about Mike Scott, Boban. They had a bunch of those guys. It was just, that was the best team that the 76ers had. The best team that they had.
And it was a crazy offseason. And yeah, I remember when the athletes too, it was, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, they would make a post and the hashtag run it back. Everybody was getting on the run it back train. And then Jimmy Butler had, that annual Easter egg hunt for the kids. And then they ended up not being able, they didn't pay him. And, there was a lot of, is it Ben Simmons? Is it Brett Brown? What's everything going on there? But yeah, Keith, when you look at that team and you just look at the history of the 76ers, it kind of went downhill from there. You kind of expected it to go a lot better, but the pieces that you got just never ended up working. And they were at an all-time high. And then Joel Embiid was supposed to continue to grow his potential. He did. He got MVP, a 70-point game. And now it's just really trickling down.
Yeah. Now it's look like the over the hill Sixers right about now. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But one player from that team, or a few players actually, that people didn't necessarily like on the 76ers are currently in the playoffs right now on their other teams. So we'll touch on that, take a look at a little bit of the NBA playoffs, still keep it Sixers right here on Locked On 76ers when we come back after the break. And we do have to tell you about FanDuel. So people, if you want to get in on your odds with FanDuel, make sure you go do it today. So I'm going to read you off some really good odds that you might want to take out your phone and bet real quick to win you a little bit of money as well. So if we take a look at some of these games that will be happening, one that you could look and bet is a very good contest, the Clippers and the Nuggets as well. In addition to the Bucks and the Pacers, right now, Indiana is actually -4.5 favorites to win that game on Tuesday. Moving on ahead, well, if you want to bet the OKC Thunder and you feel that you're really confident what they can do, they are -14.5 favorites over the Memphis Grizzlies. They were able to demolish Memphis in that first game of the series. Then we move on to the Lakers and the Timberwolves. And as Keith said a little bit ago, the Lakers are a team that drops that first game, but they're looking to come back. And, the playoff atmosphere surrounding that. We once had that over here in Philadelphia, not this year, but the Lakers are the favorite in this game. So it goes to show that people believe, and FanDuel believes, that they will be able to rise above the location with LeBron and, of course, Luka Doncic. They are -5.5 favorites. And then the Celtics -12.5 favorites over the Orlando Magic. And make sure you go check out FanDuel right now. New customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So make sure you go check out FanDuel today. You can bet on all these fantastic games. And it's not just NBA. You can check out MLB and every other sport too with FanDuel. So make sure you go check that out today because you can have a chance to win some money. Make sure you go check it out today. Once again, that's over at FanDuel. All right, so some of the players that played well in game one, we could say here, Keith, Tobias Harris, 25 points in that contest, 6 rebounds. It was a loss against the New York Knicks, but I mean, fans last year were calling for him to absolutely leave and get out of Philadelphia. And now he's having a chance to compete in the playoffs. I think the Knicks win that series, but still, he's in there. The atmosphere is there for him, and Tobias Harris is going out there and competing.
Yeah, and you know, they played last night too, game 2, and Tobias was having another solid game. But not only that, I mean, you look at Tobias, you look at Paul Reed, he's a Detroit Piston as well. And then the Knicks have PJ Tucker, right? Hey, you look at the Clippers, they have, you know, James Harden, who's playing well. So, you know, there's a lot of people, and even down like Landry Shamet. I'm gonna just bring him up. Like Landry Shamet is playing for the Knicks. There's a lot of people. You look at the rosters of the team, and you know, here's a funny one. A lot of people don't know this or they don't remember this, but Ty Jerome from the Cleveland Cavaliers had 28 points on Sunday night in his first playoff game. Ty Jerome was drafted by the Sixers. And then they traded him. He was in that trade when they got rid of, I know when they acquired Matisse Thybulle, right? So that was how that one went down. But there's a lot of players in here. But the thing is, you look at it, and my biggest takeaway is that, you know, a lot of times we look at these players when they come here and we say to ourselves, like, okay, Tobias Harris, you know, he's underachieving. James Harden, maybe he's cooked. You know, other people. I just feel like now when you look at it, you have to like honestly say that some of these guys weren't utilized the right way. They weren't. They weren't. I mean, because when you look at the players that they have now, a lot of times, what are we saying? We're saying the same thing. Oh, they no longer have it. How come every time people come here, they don't look good? But then when they go away, they go back to looking the way they did before they came. So to me, that's a big problem for the 76ers. And then you look at it and you say, like, you know, Tobias, you know what? He was a guy, and to double down on it, that the fans couldn't wait to get rid of him. Right. And now some of the fans are saying, man, I wish we had Tobias over Paul George, right? So when it's just one of those things where, you know, you feel happy for these guys that they're being able to turn their lives around. Even James Harden, I mean, you look at him, you know, he's balling, but, you know, what were people saying? Nah, get rid of him. Don't pay him the money. He's not that good anymore. And now their teams are in the playoffs, and the 76ers are in Cancun or watching on TV.
Yeah, whatever vacation they're on. It is interesting, too, because when you look at somebody like Tobias Harris, the 76ers, a lot of the fans were saying, oh, well, where was that when he was in Philly? 25 points coming in. That's what you were asking for. But if you're not utilized correctly, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't probably all just about utilization. Tobias definitely had some off nights with Philadelphia. But when you get him from the Clippers, you bring him in expecting him to be that guy, really isn't that guy, doesn't live up to it, then goes on the Pistons and is with a team that in the beginning of the season, we were saying, oh, the Sixers playing the Pistons, easy win early on. And now they're in the playoffs playing the Knicks, and Tobias Harris is out there and having a big impact. So it really can just be how they are utilized in the 76ers system. And that'll be something to really be able to tell as the 76ers continue to get through the Joel Embiid era, because there is a common denominator a little bit right there to see where the 76ers will end up. But Keith, before we send things off, I do want to ask you one thing, because we talk about the past years of the 76ers of, oh, that 2019 team against the Raptors was phenomenal, right? After that, you look at the teams, you say there's a lot of high hope. Joel Embiid starts to truly get in his prime. Do you think that we've hit the highest peak with that? I know it's tough to say, because I know we haven't really seen Paul George, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey play together healthy, but at the same time, we're talking about years where Joel Embiid was one of the most dominating players across the NBA. It may be too early to tell, but I'm curious of your thoughts before we send things off.
I mean, it's tough to say, but like, if we're going to be honest, like, you know, when Joel was at the top of his game, well, he couldn't stay healthy. and he still can't
especially in
stay
the
healthy.
postseason. Yep.
So it's kind of like, well, what was happening? They couldn't get out of the second round. So you look at it right now, if you have to base it off of what we saw last year. Now, again, the Sixers say they are confident that he's going to get back and playing to the way that he used to play, but he only played in 58 games the last 2 seasons. So if I have to base it off of that, yeah, I think the time is over for them. Like, I don't think that they'll be that same team. Now, again, if he could come back and he's healthy, then okay, let's reevaluate things. But again, he has to stay healthy for a whole season, and he has to do things and play it great, because even when he was the MVP, they lost in the second round. So, we'll see, but it's all predicated on his health. But based off of what I saw last year, no, I would have to say that the Sixers are taking a step back.
They definitely have in my book as well, because if you look back on those times, you get super ready to cover it the next season. You're seeing what they bring in, and now you're going into a year next year where you're saying, this guy got another surgery, and now we're basing a whole playoff run on his health, where he hasn't been healthy really his entire NBA career in the postseason. So it's a little bit of wait and see game. We know with Joel Embiid. Just wanted to throw that out there, though, as the NBA playoffs, they are currently in action right now. Clearly, the 76ers are trying to build a little bit for the future. They're trying to get a good draft pick and see where they can go from there. So make sure you do follow our free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com, because you can win some prizes as well. Up to April 30th, you can win a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports cave, a $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. Once again, you can join the Locked On 76ers network in terms of the newsletter. We've got trusted coverage every single day, and make sure you go check it out to find out the latest of the Philadelphia 76ers. Well, thank you guys all so much for tuning in. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Locked On 76ers.